Crystal, which is a fantasy novel. You can get it for free on my website. Just go to marcobani.com. The discussion will be broken down into two parts. You're going to have half of it's going to be on ebooks, and the other half is going to be on film. And let me introduce everybody. This is Marc Zicree.
I'm the author of the Twilight Zone Companion, and I've written for Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Sliders, Friday the 13th series, Babylon 5, hundreds of hours of network TV, and I have a new project that I'm doing called Space Command, and we'll talk about that very soon.
Yes, and this is Jimmy Davis.
Hi, I've written more episodes of Star Trek as a freelance writer than any other freelance writer in the history of the franchise. I've written episodes for Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager. I just optioned my first full-length feature film, a gothic horror western called Sundown, and trying to get a lot more of my stuff out there through self-publishing, e-publishing, developing independent films. You'll actually see a new villain for the Star Trek franchise that Paramount had actually said yes to, but that no one got a chance to see because Star Trek Enterprise got canceled in the 5th season before we could bring these new villains out. These what essentially are the new Klingons. This has been up on my YouTube site for a couple of years, but unless you were sort of in the mix, you didn't know about it.
I'm a published writer. I've had a lot of stories published over the last 15 years in short stories, magazines, books, novels. I've had blurbs on other people's movies, other people's books, and got into filmmaking back in 2006. I have now 4 features to my credit, as well as a number of television episodes, E.C. McMillan Jr., and we're working on a new one right now. One of the prizes that people will be giving away to questionnaires today is signed autograph posters, autographs from Colin Cunningham of Steven Spielberg's Fallen Skies, John Pope, Doug Jones, and a number of others. Whoever asks a question, they get a poster until the posters run out.
Total geek swag.
And I have a new collection of all my previously published short stories, as well as a few new ones that is out right now for all ebooks, ebook readers, from iTunes, Kindle, Nook, you name it, called Perpetual Bullet, a science fiction collection.
Right. So let me go into the first part of this. So I think the best time in the history of the world to be a writer today is now, because if you can write well and you can write fast and you know how to market what you write, you can be very successful as a writer. And if you want to join the gold rush of self-published authors, you should learn 2 things. First of all, you learn how to tell a story really well. And then the next thing you have to learn is internet marketing, which most people don't actually think about. They think, I'll just get a Facebook and Twitter site and I'm good to go. There's a whole lot more you need to know about internet marketing. And the other thing that would really help is by learning how to write fast. So a lot of people making money, like a lot of money, J.A. Conrad from Meta Hockey, they write books really quickly. And you'll get speed with practice. And as you get better as a writer, you tend to get faster. So let me go with the top 5 myths that I come up with self-publishing. The first myth I'd say would be only losers and bad writers self-publish their work. A lot of famous writers have self-published their work, including Ernest Hemingway, Stephen King self-published at one time, Mark Twain, and John Grisham have all done self-publishing. And a lot of people think it's impossible to make money doing this. And a lot of people are making tons of money doing this. A guy named Greg Godek sold more than 750,000 copies of his book, 1001 Ways to be Romantic. And another pair of people, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, built up a publishing empire based on the Chicken Soup for the Soul novel, not on his books. And they have sold over 100 million books. So you can make a ton of money self-publishing. A lot of people are worried about, am I good enough to self-publish? Well, a lot of people think you can tell if a story is good enough immediately, and that's only partially true. The best judge of your work is your audience. So when you self-publish, you can directly connect with your audience, and if they like it, they'll buy it. If they don't like it, they won't buy it. And the best way to market your book is to produce a lot of content. And if you're writing a short story every week, you write a short story every week. In a year, you have 50 stories. You give away all the short stories, build up an audience during that time. And at the end of the time, at the end of the year, 1, 2, 3 years, you'll build up an audience, launch a novel to your list, and you can make a ton of money.
I'm not here to villainize publishers, but it is a fact that you as an author, a rejection does not mean the publisher didn't necessarily dislike your work. I mean, sometimes it may mean that, but it's like this. Every publisher out there has editors who know what they can sell. And you may have wrote something that is science fiction and you send it off to a science fiction publisher. They read your story with only one thing in mind. Can I sell this? And that's what you're really up against as writers. Trying to find a publisher who knows how to sell it. What you accomplish as a self-published writer, let's take for example Scott Zicree. So what he did was he started giving away his stories for free as a podcast. He was reading them online. He built up an audience online. He built up such a great audience online of people who not only heard the podcast, they still wanted to buy the book. Which started a bidding war among publishers, all the publishers who rejected him. Until one of them finally paid through the nose a fortune just to publish his books. And now there'll be an option for movies. These are the things you can accomplish in self-publishing. You have to get around the word no. And it sounds so simple, but it really isn't for a lot of writers. And the biggest no that comes at you is the one that's in your own head. Thinking of these stories in your head that you wish somebody else would write, movies that you wish somebody else would make, and nobody's writing them, and nobody's going to make them until you do it. And you can do it. You can find your audience. Scott Zicree was actually tailoring his stories. He was using his audience to tell him, and all of the responses, what they liked, what they didn't like. He used the audience as his editors. The dynamic has changed, and you can change along with it. We can all be a part of it. And yeah, the market is going to weed some of this out. Some of us, for all of our good ideas, just aren't going to make it as writers. But this time we don't have anybody, right now, we don't have anybody standing between us and the audience to find out if we have what it takes to be the next J.K. Rowling.
I just wanted to open this with one thing, a little anecdotal reference. About 2 years ago at the Comic-Con, I met a young African-American woman in her early 20s. Said she was getting into e-publishing and she had some books about fairies in the ghetto, and I said, okay, that sounds good. So next year, met the same young lady, and she started telling me about her books, and she said, well, yeah, I sold them on the internet. I wrote 4 novels, sold them on the internet for about, $2 a piece, And then when we sat down and started doing the math, and she hadn't even realized that over the last 9 months she'd made $120,000. Anyway, that's when, it's like I got hit by the freight train, because that's what happens to me in this business. I'm just bumbling along doing my thing, and all of a sudden I get hit by a freight train, and then somebody says, hey, you want to write episodes for Star Trek? Yeah. So now, I'm bumbling around doing my thing, and somebody I get hit by another freight train and says, hey, you want to make a couple $100,000 a year writing e-novels? Yeah. But for me, this is a segue into the film and television industry, and that's what I'm using it for. It's been said that content is king. Well, that's wrong. Content is King Kong. Okay? And now there's no one else. The blue-suited penguins in Hollywood cannot get between you and your audience anymore. This is an incredible time. You can reach out and grab your audience and deal directly with them. You don't have to take the lousy deals that are offered to you. You don't have to hear that, oh, well, Jimmy, it's important for you to get your first project out there. Now, 10% of something is better than 10% of nothing. I've had to fight battles that a writer should not have to fight. When I should be spending all of my time developing my characters, developing my stories, I've got to fight battles to retain my creative by credit, to avoid being fired off my own project. I mean, incredible battles that just make you want to scream, and you just go, why can't I just write? God in heaven, why can't I just write?
So I started when I got out of college. When I was 22 years old, I wanted to be a writer, producer in TV, and there were no classes in that. So I thought to myself, well, I'll write a book on one of the best TV shows ever made so I can learn how to do this job. And I wrote a book called The Twilight Zone Companion. And I was 22 years old. I'd only sold 1 short story. My degree was in art. If I had asked 100 people what my chances were of convincing Rod Serling's widow to let me do that book, 2 years after Rod had died and she had already turned on major journalists, 100 people would have said you have no chance. Your future, your creative future, your artistic future is not up to the world, it is up to you, period. The studios and the networks have the money. If you want to be rich, if you want to make a lot of money, they're not a bad way to go. But the problem is that, first of all, if you want to be an artist and if you want to create something wonderful in the world, their objectives are often different from yours. And I don't mean to slam the studios and networks, because most of the TV shows we've seen that we love, most of the movies we've seen that we love came out of that process and that machine. But now, thanks to digital cameras and editing software on a computer and the internet, you don't need those guys. And so if you want to do film, TV, anything, you can do it. I was up against Pan's Labyrinth and Battlestar Galactica and Doctor Who. So, and spacecommandmovie.com is the Space Command website. You can actually watch that entire Star Trek episode on spacecommandmovie.com. So if you want to see it, it's well worth seeing. And I was prouder of that than anything I ever did for the studios or the networks, even though I've done many things I'm very proud of. I came up with Far Beyond Stars for Deep Space Nine and many other things. So, it's okay. So that proved to me you didn't need a studio or a network. That was done totally without those guys. The only thing was that we couldn't sell it because we don't own Star Trek. So I found out about Kickstarter, which is this website where you can raise financing. And because I'd never raised money before, I thought to myself, and I teamed up with Doug Drexler, who did the effects for all the recent Star Trek shows and Battlestar Galactica. He's won 2 Emmys and an Oscar. And another friend of mine, Neil Johnson, who makes very high quality, low budget science fiction films, high quality in terms of production. And I said, okay, well, how much should we try to raise over 2 months? And we said, well, $75,000. We can make the first movie for that using the model we used for the Star Trek episode. And I brought on board Armin Shimmerman's board, Ethan Phillips, and a lot of my friends. And so we thought we'd raise $75,000 in 2 months, and we raised that in just over 3 days. So there are people who can do special effects. Meet a 10-year-old who's talented at doing special effects. You know, find guys. You know, there's costumers here. There's people who can do really cool alien makeups. You don't have to, you know, go the route I did, but all the people who have the talents to do exactly what I'm doing are here. So if you want to take your novel that you're going to self-publish and turn it into a short or a series or a series of movies, this is going to be a series of movies and shorter episodes.
I wanted to show, because you know, one of the important parts of e-publishing is you do graphic novels. Go on the internet, it's called Star Trek, The Lions of the Night. These, Manny Cotto, the executive producer of Star Trek Enterprise, when he saw these creatures, he was looking for brand new villains for the Star Trek franchise. He said yes to these things, okay?
What was that name again?
Star Trek, The Lions of the Night.
The Lions of the Night.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. A lot of the new e-novels that I've seen out, they have a sidebar that looks like a kind of motion comic. For instance, in a new version of Bram Stoker's Dracula, when you take the cursor and you move it closer to the text of the book, it's a burning match, and it illuminates the text as you read. And then when you get to a part in the book where it talks about a wolf walking out of the woods, you actually see in the sidebar this wolf come out of the woods and stare at you. When it talks about raining, you see rainwater splatter on the pages. Doing graphic novels where you can have things move around, and sometimes you don't really have to have the bubbles. You can have voiceover from actors, and unfortunately, if you want to see what I'm talking about, just go see Star Trek: The Lions of the Night and realize that these guys almost were the new Klingons.
If you're looking for a fun science fiction steampunk adventure with the kind of humor that has been inspired by Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Ghostbusters, and Men in Black, I think you're going to like the Crypto Historians.
I want to say a couple things about marketing. A lot of you probably have novels and you know about writing, so you know a bunch about that. But a lot of people don't know much about marketing. And here's how most people approach marketing. See, 90% of your success as a writer comes from how good your writing is. If you're a really good writer, you'll succeed. Now, the other 90% of your success comes from how good you are in marketing. And marketing is really important. And here's how most people approach marketing. A guy wants to get married, so he goes out and he buys a diamond ring. And then he goes out to some place and he sees a girl, and he walks up to her and he hands her the ring and says, "Will you marry me?" That's how most people approach marketing. It's crazy, it's stupid. People get on Facebook, they get on Twitter, they make friends, and they go, "Hi, look at me, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff." You sign up for a newsletter, and first thing they do is they start sending them spam, "Buy my stuff, here's a discount, buy my stuff, buy my stuff." That's the wrong way to approach marketing. That's bad marketing. The best way is to adopt what's called the business friendship model. And people buy from those they like and trust. The best way to build a relationship with someone is to give away free content. So if you're writing short stories, give them away, and that'll build up your fan base, what they call a platform. And you should do that traditional publishing or not. That's how you build up an audience. And you have 3 goals of marketing, and the first goal is to build a list of people that are interested in your stuff, and the way you do that is to give away, it's called a cookie, which is an ethical bribe, which is a free thing, and the best thing is like a crash course in your subject if you're writing nonfiction, or a free story or a short story.
It's like drug pushing. Yeah. Give them the first hit free.
You give something
And
free.
make them pay for the next one.
And if you're doing a how-to book, the idea is to give them something that's useful and beneficial to them immediately. And then you do it in exchange for a name and email address, and you use what's called an autoresponder, which is Aweber or iContact. And these are list management companies that manage your lists. So you build a list. So it's all about building a list, building a relationship with your list, and then carefully marketing to your list. And never, John Reese, the first guy to make $1 million in one day on the internet, he did it by building 1 billion hits to his website. And how did he do that? He did it by giving away free content. Every time you write something, you triple it. You write a written thing, a PDF report or something, then you do an audio file. Now you've got something for iTunes, and you do a slideshow or video. So you take all your content and you triple it, and you distribute it all over. You use your content distribution strategy. So you use, if you have a YouTube site, for example, you put it on Tube Mogul, and that'll put it on all the other video sites on the internet, and everything has got a hook leading back to your website, which is called a landing page, which is the first page they see. And the purpose of that page is to collect your name and information, your name and email address in exchange for a cookie or ethical bribe, and then they're getting your newsletters, and you're sending them free stuff, free short stories, free stuff. And it's a ride. You can build up an audience doing this in 1 to 3 years, and then you can launch your product and make a ton of money real fast. That's the best way to market, and most people aren't even doing that yet in this industry.
In terms of putting out the word about what you're doing, authenticity is enormously important. If you're forthright, and if you're actually presenting who you are and what you care about, and being honest, and seeing your audience as people like you, and you're all sharing something that you really enjoy, that comes across. So just say, okay, what do I really think? What do I really feel? And say that. You'll be miles ahead of most people.
Sell your passion. There was a reason why you took the time to write that story, to write that novel. Get people interested in why you were so interested in doing it in the first place. That will carry you a lot farther than saying what a great guy or whatever you are.
I would love to be just a writer and just write. We're in the filming phase now on a lot of this, right? So, but since that's collaborative, and a lot of times I end up hitting a brick wall because somebody isn't available. I do as much as I can. I push on the marketing, and push on the filming and the directing and everything. And then when I run into a brick wall and I say, okay, I got a break, then I go back to writing and creating content. And usually my most creative time for creating content is from midnight to 8 in the morning.
I put out an effort to gather people in a spirit of mutual benefit and supportiveness. People became friends, people with talent, and people with equipment. And it didn't matter whether or not I was writing for the studios. Anyone could have started that table. And so as you start to meet people who have a good heart and who have ability, gather them to you and make sure it's a two-way street. That's a very important thing, by the way, for all of the stuff we're talking about. Anything that you need someone else to do, make sure that they get something out of it. And it's not hiring them necessarily, probably not. But it's a good question to ask them is, what's your dream? What's your dream? And then making sure that they get what they need to. Right?
Okay, there's the San Diego Filmmakers Group. Please look it up online.
Wow, what's the website?
San Diego Filmmakers Association, and they meet the second Tuesday of every month. I'm there a lot. Fail's there a lot. A lot of the researchers go there, tell them what you need. They'll network with you. You can get all kinds of stuff done. San Diego Filmmakers Association, second Tuesday of every month, usually at Groovy Like a Movie.
The hottest horror movie franchise in the world right now came right out of San Diego, Oren Peli's Paranormal Activity.
Yep.
Come on. We're hot. We're hot, people.
Thanks, you ran out of time.
Thank you so much.